recording. And then I stop recording for a bit where we all help. So, good morning again. This morning I am going to talk about, well, the Buddha talked about this being a moral universe. The universe is a moral universe. And I'm going to talk about what that means and about how we can bring that into our practice and how we can use that idea to help us in our practice. And I'm going to start with, it's going to be a weird place for me to start, this morning's tarot card. So about a year and a half ago, I had this found this connection with tarot, and it's just like this really wonderful, beautiful thing where one of the things I do now is I've got a particular Rider-Waite style deck that I draw a card out of every morning, and it's really profound. It's really communication with the universe going on there. So I pulled the card this morning, and it's the Two of Swords, which any of you know that deck. The Rider-Waite deck, the classic picture is of a woman blindfolded sitting on the beach with two large crossed swords. And there's the ocean behind us. There's all sorts of imagery of blockage and can't see and hidden from the subconscious, and actually really easy to take a blindfold off and see if you just know that's what you're supposed to do. So what's this blockage? And I was reminded of a conversation I had with somebody on the phone yesterday. Beth and I had taken off for 3 weeks in India, beginning in the middle of this coming week, so like 3 days out. And one of the things we wanted to do was get our taxes done. We're just done, except there's this one document I don't have. And it's somebody who committed to me that I would have it on Friday. So I reached out, and 10 minutes later, he said, let me look into it. And 10 minutes later, he called me back and said, Gareth, I had a nice little chat, and he said, Gareth, I've got some bad news for you. That's not going to be available actually for about another month. What? So I kind of challenged that. I wasn't unpleasant, I wasn't unkind, but I challenged it. And he said, okay, yeah, I understand, but it was a really ordinary conversation, literally a really ordinary conversation. There was no real edge in the conversation at all. But something rose up in me that wasn't, okay, well, that's fine. So what do we do with this? There was a resistance right up there. I expressed that resistance. And the result of that, although the other person probably didn't even notice it, the result of that was this got tight. And it stayed tight. Felt it in the body, and it was unpleasant. And there's just no reason to feel like that. Something similar, but a little stronger, happened several days ago now. Would have been Monday. Monday is often just a day of practice for me, and I had a particularly beautiful day. And then Beth and I went out for breakfast on Tuesday, and I was just wide open. I was in this place of calm and peace, and just wide open. That's a dangerous posture to take in the world, and I know that, but I was just in this beautiful place. And it's usually dangerous because you can be vulnerable and you get hurt, right? But what happened this time, because I was that open, when something happened in front of me that was unexpected, I resisted that, and what came up was like behavior from my child. It's actually my dad. It's stuff my dad used to do that I learned from my dad. So there was negative. It wasn't really unpleasant, but it was strong enough that he definitely noticed, and it stayed with me for a long while. So as I was scribbling this morning, thinking about that tarot card, it's like words just spontaneously came out. The barrier to my happiness is just me. Of course, that's just the Buddha's teaching. A better word than happiness, though, is peace, because I use happiness a lot in this valence, and it's not the right word, because we think when we think of happiness, it's like, it's a nice cookie. I'm happy because I'm eating a cookie. I'm happy because I'm with my friends. It's peace. It's peace. It's freedom. It's freedom from being caught up in emotion. There's stability. It's calm. And the experience the other day, what I realized at the time, what I said to myself, and I said to Beth at the time, is, I don't ever want to feel like that again. Ever, ever, ever. And, you know, for most of my life, that would have just been no big deal. I would have left and I would have felt justified. Well, he was in the way. I mean, perfectly reasonable behavior. And at one level, yes, but I don't ever to feel like that again. And I don't want ever to engage in behavior where I project that energy and I affect somebody else in that. I just don't want ever to do that. So there's a line, we chant something very similar in a precepts ceremony once a month, but a slightly longer version is, I am the heir to my actions, owner of my actions, born of my actions, and live related to my actions. Whatever I do for good or for evil, to that will I fall heir. I am precisely what I do. Every moment, every action I make, every intentional action I make is what I am in that moment. And I have a choice every moment. Sometimes I'm not paying enough attention. So the default choice is childhood stuff comes up and it behaves unkindly. But I have a choice every moment with how I behave. And it's a moral universe in that every one of those behaviors is what I become. In that moment, those two things I just talked about, those two moments of my behavior, that's what I was. And in this body, yes, I dealt with it upstairs, but in this body, it stays in the body. You can calm the mind, and it takes much longer to calm the body. It's like, I've got some very good friends who are Turkish. And there was this coup, this attempt, it wasn't an attempted coup, but it's talked about as an attempted coup. I think it's 2016. And it's incredibly divisive in the country. Families were split, societies were split, communities were split. It was really, really, really awful. And the community and the people I know were just really, they're still reeling from it. They've had a bunch of years to deal with it, but many of them are still separated from family because it's not safe for them to go back. And at some point, Erdogan is going to lose power and the government's going to change and something's going to happen. But it will take a couple of generations for that to heal. It's not going to happen quickly. And our bodies work the same way. We can heal in some places and we can think we're dealt with it, but it takes the body a long time to work through some stuff. And so this is where our practice comes in, right? The Satipatthana Sutta, many of you will know, is the mindful of the body in the body. It's the foundations of our practice of being mindful of the body in the body, the feelings, which are, does that feel nice? Does that feel unpleasant? Basically, it's not thinking about what emotions it brings up, but does that just feel pleasant or unpleasant? Mindful of feelings. Mindfulness, being aware of the mind in the mind, which is thinking about stuff. And then the dharmas, which is everything we see in the world, everything we make in the world. This isn't a computer. If you're a squirrel or a cockroach, this isn't a computer. It's a computer because we have this language and these mental formations and this way of experiencing the world in which this has a particular purpose to serve, and it fits into our life in a particular way that my parents wouldn't know, my grandparents certainly wouldn't know. But for us, this is a computer. So the dharmas are all the soul we make in the world. And so our practice becomes, in this sense, to settle into this. And when we are aware of the body in the body, we settle in and we notice what I was just talking about, those feelings that came up in me. If we're doing a good job of it, which I wasn't on my day, Tuesday, I wasn't on Tuesday. If we do it, because I was intentionally not doing this work. I was intentionally just out there experiencing. But so if we're doing a good job, we are being very cautious about how we behave. We're stopping ourselves from doing things that could cause harm. We're intentionally saying, what can I do here that will be skillful? And it's skillful as in not causing harm out there, not causing harm in here. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Said, I'm going to probably misquote this a little bit, it's roughly right. He said, we shall overcome because the arc of the moral universe bends towards justice. And I hear that as pointing exactly to what I'm talking about right here. The arc of the moral universe. The universe is a moral universe. And it bends towards justice. Now, the way I'm looking at that, where I think the Buddhist teachings look at that, isn't that we expect somebody to come down from a big cloud up in the air and up in the sky with a big sword and impose justice. But what happens here, if I settle in, if I'm in this place where I'm in this place of peace, then whatever's going on in the world, I am still at peace. And it's the way it works. If you find this peace, if you find the stillness, then whatever's going on, you are still, whoever's in this place of peace, it's still peace. Thich Nhat Hanh, I believe it was, talked about, be the peace you want to see in the world. Be the peace you want to see in the world. Because if you are that peace, you remain that peace. It doesn't mean not being affected by what's going on. There are some awful things going on. Awful, awful, awful things. There's some awful things going on in this country. It doesn't mean I'm not affected by those. It doesn't mean I don't feel called to do something, to act, to engage, to support people who need support, to stand up for civil and human rights where they're being violated, to try and say and do appropriate behaviors to intercede where harmful behavior is happening. Doesn't mean any of that. What it means is I remain at peace. Now, of course, I've given you a couple of instances where that didn't happen, but I'm not pretending I'm the perfect role model there, but this is the teaching and this is the experience. Being at peace relates to the world in that way. And I know over the last 20 or 30, well, it would be, my kids are in their late 20s now. So it'll be over the last 20 years where my kids have seen the impact of my practice on my life and therefore on their lives. And they know I'm not the same person as I was 10 years ago. And so seeing that shift and being with me at times when they would normally see me spiral out of control. They used to see me spiral out of control and I'm just peace. That affects them. If we are that person, it affects the people around us. One of the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful things that's happening today is we have 20 people, something like that, in this room right now. And every one of you came in here, and you, each of you in your own, you may, I don't know what's going on inside any of you, but what you're presenting and what's happening when you sit, when you're here, is you are presenting that piece. And that's an offering to everybody else in the room. And it affects everybody else in the room. And it helps everybody else settle down. And so you in turn feel there's this wonderful thing that happens when we move into this place of peace. If we're in company and somebody is in that company and they are just this rock, this really stable rock, it helps everybody I know for sure. I'm pretty sure most people. It helps you stay grounded. It helps you not spiral out of control when somebody else in your group is stable. When your community is like that, wow. And that's the community we're building here, is a community that's like that. So anybody who comes in here feels that peace. Want some of that. There are other cool things that happen around here, like cookies and tea, right? But it's that peace. I want some of it. And then take that out into the world. So this is how I see the arc of the moral universe bending towards justice. Because for those who recognize the morality of the universe, it happens inside when we realize, when we pay attention here to our own behaviors, we own our actions. We own our actions. And we realize we actually don't have a choice in whether we own our actions or not, because we do. But it really helps when we make that intentional recognition that we start seeing how they show up here. So we receive the precepts, chant precepts once a month, and we renew the precepts on a monthly basis. And it becomes not this set of rules, not a set of guidelines that determine how we should live our lives. It becomes a lived physical experience that I recognize these are a really good framework for me to use when moment by moment I stop, decide what to do next. Is it skillful enough? Stop, skillful enough, and I judge my action. The precepts are a very useful framework to help us with those decisions. And we start to realize in the body that following that set of guidelines leads to a life that is peaceful, leads to a life where our engagements with other people are peaceful. And they're a lot more peaceful around us than they used to be. Why is that, do you think? So we become more peaceful, we become calm, we become more stable, and the world becomes more stable. And we are just much better equipped from that place to work in. So this to me is how it's a moral universe. It's clearly experientially moral universe, and moves bends towards justice in this kind of way. I'm going to quote a little bit from, this is the Thanissaro Bhikkhu's translations of the Therigatha, which is the elder monks. There's a story, it's a well-known story, but I particularly like the way it shows up in here. It's well-known in Buddhist circles, in Theravada Buddhist circles anyway, of Angulimala. And he was, he's in this, it's like monks, this is not necessarily monks, it's enlightened men and women from around the time of the Buddha. So the first couple of verses, so what happened, the story in the introduction, Angulimala, he's a murderer. He was originally on a spiritual quest, somehow or other it went sideways and he ends up being a murderer and he's collecting people's fingers and hanging them from a necklace from Buddha is out there begging for food in a village, in a community, and the villagers say, don't go out, it's not safe, this murder, it's Angulimala's out there. I'm okay, I'm going to go out anyway. So he goes out, and Angulimala comes running up behind him, and the Buddha just carries on walking on slowly. And Angulimala is running and running and running and can't catch up to with the Buddha. This also shows up, by the way, in the Sutra of Huineng, where Huineng's come south of the river, and I forget the guy's name, but he wants the roads, he wants the transmission, and he's chasing after the Buddha, and he can't get to the Buddha. He can't, and it's the same trope. And you can philosophize about what that's all about. But Angulimala says, stop to the Buddha, and the Buddha says, I have stopped. So the poem picks up there. While walking contemplative, you say, I have stopped. But when I have stopped, you say that I haven't. I ask you the meaning of this. How have you stopped? How haven't I? And the Buddha replies, I have stopped, Angulimala, once and for all, having cast off all violence towards all living things. You, though, are unrestrained towards being. That's how I've stopped and you haven't. This stopping is something we can do every moment. And I would encourage all of us to try and do this often. Something happens. If we just react, we don't know where it's going to go, because it's just this deeply ingrained habitual reaction. In my life, one of the stories for me, it was this stuff that came from really deep, way back with my father. Just wide open and I let it come through. And most of us, most of our lives are like that. I spent much of my life that way. But if we intentionally stop, it gives us a pause. It gives us a moment to think, what should I be doing? There's something that it's creeps into Buddhism a lot, and it's very much part of culture, which is you're perfect just the way you are. I'm perfect just the way I am. That is absolutely true. Everybody is just perfect, just the way they are. But it is not enough. It's not enough. The Buddha taught you have everything you need in this 6-foot body to wake up. In that regard, we are absolutely perfect because we have everything we need. In addition to all the other valences of it, we have everything we need to see how we're causing ourselves stress, discomfort, dis-ease, suffering, everything to see that, and everything we need to address that so that we reduce the level of suffering, stress we cause ourselves, reduce the amount we cause others. So the practice allows us to bring up and see what we're doing and allows us to work with that. So yes, we're absolutely perfect the way we are. And being perfect just the way we are means we have exactly the right tools to take that and end our suffering. What could be a better way to spend our lives than to really work on making ourselves peaceful, making ourselves be peace in the world for ourselves and for everybody around us. So after the narrative piece, there's Angulimala's reflections here. He says, who was once heedless, in his case, a murderer, a serial murderer, but later is not, brightens the world like the moon set free from a cloud. His evil done deed is replaced with skillfulness. He brightens the world like the moon set free from a cloud. This is not about denying anything we've done in the past. This is not about regretting what we've done in the past. It's fully owning it. And with that, accepting that's how we've become who we are, moving to a place where we can start to practice this mindfulness. Heedfulness is the word that comes out here. We can start to practice skillful behaviors. We can start to calm our suffering, and with the wisdom we've learned from what we've done, really manifest strongly as peace in a way that helps ourselves and helps other people. The cloud has gone. The cloud is this deluded behavior, the stuff that we reacted with just unconsciously, that we assumed was helping us. We thought we were acting in a way that would make ourselves happy, but it actually wasn't. It was exacerbating things. So, like the moon of wisdom, the moon, if you look at the moon, there's something clear, beautiful about that nighttime light, that white silver light of the moon. It's often used in many traditions to symbolize wisdom. Just something so peaceful about it. So the cloud of our deluded behavior has cleared, and what's left behind is just this calm, wise, compassionate presence in the world. I will stop there.